Next, we're going to do some mushroom identification. And so I hope that everyone had picked up a mushroom ID in front. Anyone not? Anyone in Lincoln at least not have one? If you're in Scotts Bluff, I probably can't get it out to you in time. But all right, looks like everyone has those. And on the back page of it, I have two different types of mushrooms up there, and would just like to kind of go through and look at those mushrooms to see, using a very generic mushroom key, are we able to identify what we're actually seeing growing? You get a lot of we get a lot of questions in the diagnostic clinic that are, what is this mushroom that's growing in my yard? And great thing is, a lot of mushrooms you can use a dichotomous key to really help identify them. Up on the screen, I do have a few of the terms that people may not be familiar with, and so as we're going through the mushroom key, can always refer back to that slide in your handouts to get the definition. But first, we'll look at unknown mushroom number 1. So unknown mushroom number 1 was found in clumps where an oak tree had been removed 2 years ago. So the caps were pretty firm and about 3 to 4 inches in diameter. The stems, though, while the caps were firm, the stems were pretty flimsy. And when I was breaking the stems, I wasn't really seeing any liquid come out. So name that mushroom. And we can work through the key that hopefully you guys have. So, first, as we look at it, so is there a vulva? And again, the vulva is kind of right at the base. If there's that ring around it or that cup, that is the vulva. So on mushroom number 1, are we seeing a ring around it? Not really. Typically, if there was one, it's much more defined. Typically, there's not going to be a question of whether or not you do have that. You do have that. So that would be, the answer would be no. So as we go down our key, so now we have a stem with the ring. Is it growing? So first, do these stems have rings on them for mushroom number 1? Nope. All right. So we can move on to mushroom number 3. Exudes milk when damaged. Nope. Like I had said, it has it was pretty, no liquid came out when I broke it. Next is the cap. Is the cap and stem brittle or crumbly for this one? Nope. Correct. Not brittle. So again, moving on. Is it growing on the remains of other mushrooms? And so if it was growing on the remains of other mushrooms, we'd be able to see dead mushrooms on the bottom of these. So is it growing on diseased or on decaying mushrooms? No. Correct. Good. I know this down in the corner of mushroom number 1, it does look, there are some other mushrooms that are growing out there, but that's just more of a clump of mushrooms that's growing. So next, since it's not growing on mushroom remains, are the caps small, so less than about 1.5 inches in diameter, or large? Large, yep. And as we can then move on to looking at the gills, and here I will go back to this picture. So are the gills decurrent? And that just means, do the gills attach as they go down the stalk? If you look on the the figure to the right on the top, towards the middle, that's the decurrent one. Are they decurrent? No. Basically, it's ours. Are the if you see the picture that we have here, the gills just slow. They grow, will continue to grow down the stem. So no, we don't have decurrent gills. Is there a taproot that we're able to see? Nope. Yep. Most of these do not have a defined taproot. So we keep moving on. Are the stems basically, are the stems tough? Again, nope. Good. So are the gills, as you look at the gills of mushroom number 1, do they look thick to you, or do they look fairly thin? Thin. All right. Good. Then final question is, are they growing in clumps? So do we have the stems that are fused at the base for multiple mushrooms, or are they growing singular? Fused. Yep. So I had given you guys that answer already. But yeah, so unknown mushroom number 1, hopefully everyone out state was able to follow through as well and got Armillaria tubescens for mushroom number 1. But now we're going to do the same one with mushroom number 2. And this is one that you guys may be more likely to see, actually. So we'll just go again through the process. So is there a vulva on mushroom number 1? Do we have that kind of hoop-like remains at the base of the stem for mushroom number 1? No? Correct. All right. Are there rings on the stem? No. Did it exude milk when damaged? Nope. Oh, I did not read my unknown mushroom number 2. Apologies. So this one was found in a circular patch on the lawn. Caps were pretty firm, about 1 inch in diameter. No liquid was observed on broken stems, but the stems were very tough, and it was kind of difficult to get them to break to even pull out. So we had asked about it, does it exude milk? And the answer for that was no. So now the caps, brittle or firm? Yep, firm. Growing on the remains of other mushrooms? No, it's just it's coming up the stalks there. The caps are they large or small? Yep, small caps. So again, we keep going down. And now we can look for, again, are the gills decurrent? So are the gills growing down the stalk? Nope. Next, is there a taproot? Yeah, it's not a very good taproot. So is basically there is not. The taproot would be a lot longer for these if there actually was, as opposed to maybe just having a little bit of soil that's there on the end. Is the stem does the stem contain cartilage? Was the stem tough? Yep, it was pretty tough. So now we can kind of stop at Colia B. So fortunately, it was kind of difficult to come up with a pathology hands-on thing that can be done online. A lot of pathology is just a matter of looking through microscopes, looking at things in person. So one of the great things is that with keys like this, you really can identify quite a few different mushrooms. Same as you would use a key like this to identify a random plant that might be growing in your yard. But real quickly then, our answers. And do I? Yep. So I kind of tricked people as I was going through this last one. So if we go back, so as we look at mushroom number 2, that's a fairy ring mushroom. Marasmius is the genus name. But I had asked, was it growing on mushroom remains? The answer was no. Were the caps large or small? The answer was small. And then I just kept going onto the next question, as opposed to looking under number 6 to see, okay, with those small caps, what are we looking at? And the question then, underneath, once we have those small caps, are the gills decurrent on it? So are the gills growing down the stem? The answer for that was no. Are the caps conical? Are basically just look like a cone? Not really. No, they're fairly flat. But then with the tough stems that contain some cartilage that are tough, that is how we were able to identify the fairy ring mushroom. So whenever you're using a key like this, it's always important to go through it step by step. And just because you've answered one of the questions, always make sure to go and answer the rest of the questions underneath that, as opposed to jumping on into the next one. Any questions about mushroom ID, anything like that? I can send one out, but this is a fairly generalized guide. You can do a quick Google search. We'll easily come up with a very similar guide that will probably be more in depth as well. And also, if you look at the top of this mushroom ID key, again, this is only for mushrooms that have gills, a central stem, and kind of light-colored spores. So if you have a mushroom that's growing out of a tree, this key would not be of any use for it. And so that's, whenever you are doing mushroom ID, you'll see different keys for different sorts of mushrooms. And so there will be, the mushrooms with gills, a central stem, and light-colored spores. Otherwise, you might have mushrooms with no stem. That'll be a whole nother type of key as well. Correct. Yep. So that was my being tricky. So one of the questions was, someone had heard that mushrooms growing on wood are safe to eat. Mushrooms growing on the ground are not safe to eat. No. Never eat a mushroom you see in the wild unless you know 100% what it is. Not just that you've gone through a 10-step key and it looks like what you think it should look like. Still don't eat that mushroom. You know, there are a lot of mimics that are out there for every. So morel mushrooms, everybody knows morel mushrooms, but there is a false morel mushroom. Only difference is really that if you look at the very top of it, there's a small opening at the very top of the cap. That's one of the only ways to tell the false morel from the actual morels. But yeah, there are poisonous mushrooms that grow on the ground, poisonous ones that grow soil or grow on wood. Same as there are poisonous mushrooms that, basically, yes, they kind of are thick. They're thicker than we would see on the other one. But any other questions about using a key, or if not, we'll move on.